Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alan Wolk. He is the co-founder of TVREV. They're an industry analyst firm. He has some amazing state of the industry content to share with you. He is also the inventor of the term FAST. So for everybody in the TV industry, the free ad-supported channels, Alan coined that term. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you. Okay, I actually have a lavalier mic, so I'm going to stand in front of that. So we're going to take you through today the state of the industry. Now, as the name probably gives you a clue, TVREV focuses on the TV industry, but the entire media industry is becoming more and more interrelated, interoperable, and we're going to take you through what's going on in different pieces of the media industry all through. And then at the end, I'm going to show you how it all kind of interrelates and some of the big trends that you should be looking for and keeping an eye on. So, without further ado, that works. Okay, we're going to start off with the state of television. Take you through each of these, we'll take you through 2 or 3 key things that are happening with a lot of talk about why they're important. So, first thing in the state of TV is that shoppable TV is getting real. Now that in and of itself is not all that exciting or different. We've been trying to make shoppable TV happen for 30 years, right? The sort of thing they call is Jennifer Aniston's sweater, and at the time that referred to a show that was currently on TV, the idea being that you could click on something and actually click on Friends and buy the sweater that Rachel Green was wearing. So why is this important now? Well, television, when it went on to TV, obviously was shot on film. When they digitized it, they did a really terrible job of putting any of the metadata against it, right? So Seinfeld would go on the air and be like, Seinfeld, comedy, or Seinfeld, episode 4, season 2, and that was it. So they had no way of knowing what was on any of these shows. So now there's a whole bunch of companies that are using generative AI to go through and tag everything in these shows. So whether it's the emotion, are they ordering a pizza, or the actors in it. So this way, if say I am Domino's, they can find me a scene where the characters are ordering a pizza, and I can run my ad there, and I can even have something in there that would let me actually order the pizza right then and there. So the fact that AI is helping commerce is sort of what's key about shoppable TV getting real. The other thing that's important in this is that for years, television advertising was dominated by a few hundred companies. It is really expensive to produce a television commercial, or it has been really expensive to produce a television commercial. The cost of it were really high. And so other than local car dealers running late night stuff, you didn't really have any brands. One of the things that's happening now as we move to streaming is that the industry is opening up to a lot more players. You have a lot of brands that have ads that they've created for social media, video, and so they're able to use those on TV. The targeting, the much better targeting is allowing them to sort of go in, do hits. You even see things now like self-serve. So self-serve is another huge, I think this is going to be a huge thing in the next, say, 4 to 5 years. So what that is all the TV companies looked at Facebook. Now, if you remember back a couple of years ago, there was that whole Cambridge Analytica thing, right? And all these big companies were going to boycott Facebook. And they're like, oh, wait, it doesn't really matter because they don't get most of their money from big companies. They get most of their money from small and medium businesses. They've got billions of dollars on these self-serve ads. So TV companies now are saying, hey, we should do this too. We should make it easy. And there's a bunch of AI-driven companies that do Waymark out of Detroit, if you want to look one of them up, that literally, like, your grandparents could make their own TV commercial. It's super simple. It's very similar in degree of difficulty to putting up a Facebook ad. And they're looking at all these small businesses and saying, hey, you can run a commercial too. One of the companies that's very front and center in this is Amazon. So you can imagine how that works. So not only do you run the ad, but you quickly click and you buy off of Amazon. So the other thing, and this is sort of part and parcel of this, ad-supported streaming is happening. Now, there's been a couple of surveys lately from LG, from the Harris poll, from Hub Research, showing that people actually prefer watching streaming TV with ads or free streaming TV with ads. So that's where I come in fast. That people actually don't want it. And a lot of that is because ads have become better targeted, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done, but overall, there's fewer of them, they're better targeted, they're able to know and match them emotionally too, so that you're not running your funny ad during the funeral scene, which is something that would happen a lot as we move to programmatic. So that's another big thing that's happening in the television industry, and as such, we're starting to see all the big streaming services are rolling out ad-supported tiers, and so in some ways we're kind of going back. We're also seeing a lot of bundling. Just last night there was an announcement that Discovery and Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery and Disney, we're going to start bundling Max with all of the Disney channels, Hulu, ESPN, and Disney Plus. And so that's another part of it. They're going to be pushing that ad-supported tier really hard, so that the price gap between what the ad-supported costs and what the ad-free costs is going to be much, much bigger. Why is that? Because people look, generally, if you think about what the way people sort of go into this is, you look and say, oh, there's a show I want to watch. Oh, it's $6 a month more to watch it ad-free. I'm probably going to churn out of this after 2 months anyway. But if that gap is $16, then you're like, yeah, maybe the ad support is not that bad. And they need that ad supported in order to survive. They can't make it up just on subscriptions. So that's what's going on TV, and I'm going to take you through some other media types and how all of this kind of relates. So, one last piece here is AI is driving better recommendations. So that's another thing with TV. I'm sure if I asked any of you, what's your number one problem with streaming now, I can't find anything. I have no idea where to watch shows. My friend told me about a show, I don't know where it is, I have to go to Google. So we're starting to see much better recommendations, and the interface of the TV has become a big deal. So for years, TV OEM manufacturers didn't need to have an interface, right? It's just where they had the cable box. So now they have to have their own interface, and they are using that. Control of the interface is going to be the big battle over the next couple of years. Who owns that? Because that controls everything from data to advertising to what content goes on and what order you see it in. And the ease of the interface and how easy it is to find things on there is going to be the big differentiator, because now that we have HD and 4K on all the TVs, there's really no improvement. There's not, it's sort of like, when you would, back in the audio days, when somebody would have, $8,000 speakers, you'd be like, yeah, I guess it sounds a little bit better than my $80 speakers, but like, it wasn't that big a deal. Same thing with TV, so the interface is really going to be what drives it, and having that better recommendations, having just a better user experience overall. And that sort of extends out across everything. So the next thing we're talking about is audio. So audio is sort of TV's, sort of cousin there. We talk about streaming audio, radio, Sirius XM, things like that. So again, the big thing here is that podcasts are hotter than ever, right? So podcasts started out, people thought it was going to be a trend, just this trend, but it really has legs. And we're starting to see people like Joe Rogan get multi-million dollar deals, and everybody has a podcast now. One of the big things about podcasts is if I am Spotify, I can run ads on the podcast, even though the consumer is paying for the ad-free version of Spotify because they have to deal with the podcast owner. So that's going to be a huge trend. We're seeing that getting bigger. It's sort of something that people can do on their own time. There's a lot more, but it's a lot more personalized. And again, this is where AI is coming into play, of helping people find podcasts, because there's just so much out there, and recommend and make the experience overall a better thing. Recommendations also goes to music, where record companies actually pay to have their songs boosted on there. People don't always realize that. They're like, oh, Spotify knows me so well. But that's another thing. As these recommendations get better, you see more engagement. The same thing with podcasts. Everybody's trying to get, you only have a limited number of hours in a day, right? So everybody's trying to get as many hours, as much of your time as they can. They're not going to get you to sort of interact with media more, but they want to grab their piece of the pie. So the more they can give you something that you want to listen to, the better it is. Now, music, fortunately, does have much better metadata to it, especially podcasts, because it was created at a time when they knew this was going to be important. But there's so much in there that they can pull out. So this is about digital media, which is basically anything on the internet, except social will be the next category. So again, the algorithms on this are getting much smarter, and that's really on a few things, on search, so there's a lot of search is paid, and also on what ads they're serving you, and how frequently, and where to put them, and knowing that people use ad blockers and don't want to see them. And just in general, that is getting, and again, what is the reason for that is AI. It's understanding your patterns, your habits, how you're using the web, and then understanding what types of ads work better emotionally, which is something that's relatively new to this, and in terms of what your habits are, the ability to target. But one of the problems that the digital media is now having is that cookies are blowing up, right? So Google's been threatening to do away with cookies and get rid of cookies. Cookies are how I'm not sure what everybody here does, so cookies are how they track you. It's a code, they track you on the internet and know what you're doing, but cookies are going away. So one of the big things that people talk about replacing cookies, and we see this in all the media, is contextual. So contextual targeting basically means that people who like this type of programming, who are watching this, who are visiting this type of website, are going to be good customers for this type of brand. And they can tell by where you've been before, and what type of people go on this, and that's really where we're getting where the advertising market is going, because they can't track you anymore. The other thing that's messing all of the tracking up is the switch to something called IPv6. So right now we are on IPv4, which is the internet, and it's a 32-bit, which means your IP address has 32 numbers in it. And I see some people nodding their head there. This is probably working that. And you can tell where someone lives based on their IP address. So we moved to IPv6 to be 128 characters, meaning that you'll get a new IP address every couple weeks, and there'll be no way that they'll be able to track where you live or anything like that based on your IP address. Now, the industry's kind of like buried their head in the sand for the large part about this, because they're like, yeah, it's coming. But when it happens, that's going to mess up a lot of the ways that people track everything. And again, this is why contextual is going to be so huge. Knowing those emotional cues, those content cues of where to run the ads. It also avoids a ton of privacy issues, right? So you're not tracking anybody. You're saying that people who like sports like beer, And so that's not violating anybody's privacy, rather than this person in this zip code is more prone to drink this type of beer. So it's a much more privacy-friendly way, it's a much more emotionally resonant way, and we think it's going to be huge, so look for companies that are doing this kind of stuff. We'll get into that. So social media, everybody's favorite whipping boy. So LinkedIn is having a moment right now, right? Especially with any kind of B2B, because X, Twitter, has sort of fallen off people's radars. This sort of rap on Facebook because nobody uses it. You have TikTok is possibly getting banned in the US, and it's a very specific audience. Instagram is sort of like, yeah, people use it, but it's a certain type of thing. And suddenly everyone's like, oh, LinkedIn, look at that. They've got all these users on there, and people don't really talk about controversial things. They talk about business. So a way to see LinkedIn's interface is a hot mess for the most part. It is. Like if I type in, if I'm trying to tag Patrick on something, and I type in Patrick O L, and it'll show me 8 Patricks that I have no connection to, and I'm like, okay, here's the one guy whose name is spelled like that I'm connected to. Why don't you put that on top? But anyway, that's my pet peeve. Tagging. But so people are starting to look at that and see what they can learn from the way people interact on LinkedIn. One of the key things is, by and large, people use their real identity. So that's something to sort of think about. And I've been starting to get hit up from companies about LinkedIn influencers and things like that, using it the way that they use the other social media. And influencers are having a huge influence. Something like $16 billion is driven by influencer advertising. And again, a lot of that you look at is a form of contextual, right? It is people who like this person's content, like this group's content, also like these types of products. And it also creates, for a lot of people, it also creates content that they can use across media. So if you're paying an influencer to create something for you for social, it's very easy to take that that, make a TV commercial out of it, make a radio, an audio ad, radio ad out of it. So there's a lot of interconnection there. And again, AI, generative AI is coming in and showing you things in your feed from different influencers that you might like, based on other things that you like and other things that you have done on those platforms. So that's what's going on with social. Gaming is another big thing. One of the big things about gaming in there is that, so cloud-based gaming is now table stakes. What does that mean? So when you have games that are sort of hosted up in the cloud, it means that you can put games on pretty much any device. So we're going to start seeing a lot more devices that you didn't expect it from having, pretty, more than just sort of Tetris on there, right? So TV sets are a big one. All the TV OEMs are starting to add gaming into their interfaces now. We're seeing all the phones, and again, it's getting more sophisticated. Part of that is realizing that the audience for gaming is growing up, and it's a lot more bigger percentage of the population. Another thing that's pushing it is two of the biggest hit TV shows in the last year or so have been based off of video games. The Last of Us, and now Amazon's new show Fallout. And they're realizing, there's something in here, we've exhausted comic books. And it's a way to keep people on the platforms for longer, right? So if I am Vizio, if I'm Samsung, I want people on my platforms that I make money serving ads from other media companies, from actual advertisers. So the more I can keep them on my platform, the more I can keep loyalty, that's what I want. So that's why cloud-based gaming is such a huge thing. Now again, that's more in the US, parts of Asia, Western Europe, where we have good Wi-Fi and 5G. In other parts of the world where the internet is 3G at best, cloud-based gaming is not as big, it still has a way to go because you do need a strong internet connection. But at the same time, in those countries, it lets you use a cheaper device if you do have a good internet connection, because you don't need all that storage space to keep the games on. The other piece, again, is gamers want more personalization. So again, this is where generative AI is really coming in, where it can sort of create scenarios based on users' need, users' personality, things that they like, and really kind of walk in and create stuff that's very unique for each user. And this is something that we're going to start seeing a lot more of. There's a lot of companies that are working on this so that your interaction will be unique to you, especially with non-player characters and and things like that, different scenarios. So again, generative AI making its way in there. So what's our key takeaway from all this? That everything is interrelated, all the various media types, and the impact that generative AI is having on it. Now, it's not going in and writing things, it's not taking things or jobs away. It's just making it easier to understand what's going on and create a level of personalization that heretofore was impossible. And I've never used heretofore to speak for stuff. So it's really dramatically shaping all of our media experiences. So what are we going to look for in the years ahead? So the first one is just what I talked about is hyper-personalization in all our media experiences. And that really, from the consumer standpoint, that can be everything from the news show that you see on a streaming channel will be personalized so that it knows that that you care about the weather, you'll see the weather first. You'll see a longer weather report. If it knows that you live in Connecticut, in the New York area, it will show you the Connecticut news and emphasize that. So everything's getting a lot more hyper-personalized down to, you all probably see it already, say with Spotify, you have all these, it creates all these playlists for you, and even within certain genres, it will create a playlist, that's based on, I used to say it's like 60s rock, their 60s rock playlist, it can actually personalize it down to you, so, all throughout. So, why that matters. So you get higher levels of engagement thanks to this hyper-personalization, right? So people will spend more time with it, they'll look forward to it. The more you get it right, the better it is. So again, all these different things. That also leads to higher expectations for consumers, though. So you don't want to get it wrong. People are start expecting, when I come on, this thing's going to look like me, it's going to reflect me, and if it doesn't, you lose them. So you really want people to kind of get in and get there. You're also going to have more conversational interfaces. One of the cool things about Gen AI is that it actually understands the way people talk. So if you remember, Alexa being a good example, there's sort of a certain way you have to say things to to different AI devices, or type in even with Google prompts. So it's going to be much easier. Say, same with television. You can say, oh, show me that episode of Seinfeld with the fast talker, and it'll know what you're talking about, and it'll get there for you, as opposed to having to sort of type in special stuff. It just makes the whole experience a lot better overall. We're also going to have the AI's content creation skills. And again, it's not writing stuff for you, but it will sort of do the transitions on the interface. Here's your news, Alan. Things like that. You can see Spotify has a DJ function, which, it's not great yet, but you can see in a couple of years, this is going to be really useful as it learns you, as they improve it. And so that's going to be another big thing. Emotional responses as a measurement tool. It's going to be able to figure out, obviously it's not going to say, are you happy, but there are ways that AI can tell by what you do, by your reactions to things, what the emotion that you have, from something, and what your response is to a commercial, to a certain show, and that's going to be something that that people look at, because that's really something that we haven't measured. Like, yes, you watched this, but why did you watch it? What was going on in your head? What was that kind of emotion? Again, there's going to be a lot of snake oil around this, because you can't always know, people don't always know themselves, but this is going to be something we're starting to see a lot of companies talking about this and all that. At the same time, there's going to be a lot of increased privacy concerns, right? So people are thinking, what's that line between personalized and intrusive? When does stuff get creepy? When does it like, okay, you know me a little too well, or I just searched this once and now you think this is all I want? So it's really got to refine itself and understand what those differences are. So I'm going to take you through what you need to do about it. So the first thing you need to do if you own content is make sure that it's well tagged and cataloged. So AI can help you do that, but in order for AI to actually work, you need to have everything, all of your meta tagging, everything, so that it can be tracked and found and all that, because there's still a lot out there that is not very well tagged across all media. And then let user reaction be your guide into how much personalization is too much. Sometimes if yes, we might give you the news for Connecticut first, but maybe I don't want that. So understand that not everybody fits into a neat bucket, and try and understand what people are, what people's needs are, what people's preferences are based on who they are, and not trying to sort of stereotype everybody and put them into a bucket. And again, don't be too creepy. First impressions matter, but you don't want to sort of overwhelm somebody with, hey, we know everything about you right off. So you want a learning process on there, because that is something that people are very attuned to, and as industry often dismisses privacy concerns because people sort of don't make a big deal of it, but it's there and it impacts people's use of a platform. I mean, Apple, we all know Apple has made a business out of saying, hey, we're privacy compliant, we don't mess with your privacy, even though they kind of do. It's the marketing message that they put out there, and it matters to people. And it's going to be something, again, that says companies apart. Also, there's all the, again, I was talking about with snake oil and these emotion, measurement metrics. Understand them, push back. There's a lot of people coming to you and telling you that they can understand this and do all this. Make sure you understand them, can explain them to your clients. Make sure that they're telling you that they can do what they say they can do. That they can't magically, track and have somebody's feeling all the time. Biggest thing, I think, is don't be afraid to experiment. We're at a stage now where there's not a lot, all this stuff is new, there's not a lot of money, and the people who get in first, the people who are playing with it first, are the people who are going to win, right? The people who understand how to use it, so when it gets to be bigger, that's going to be what's super important. And then, the final piece is use AI on this stuff, don't let it use you. Have a goal in mind. Don't just say, oh, our strategy is AI. No, let AI be your helper. Let it be a tool, but always do what you want to do.